a couple of times really focused on developing the ears to hear the master's voice in everything that everyone that we encounter. So another step in this discovery is not only hearing the master, that is the divine consciousness speaking to us from others, but realizing that our own voice, we need to be able to hear our own voice as the voice of that divine consciousness. And in that process of really hearing our own voice, then also that can guide us in how to craft skillfully how we say things, what words we choose, to realize the impact of our voice on ourselves and on others, and let that awareness guide us. And this is a very deep topic, really, in all the wisdom traditions. It goes to the words of the Gospel of John. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Now listen to this from the Vedas, several thousands of years before John put down those words. The Vedas say, Prajapati Advaya idam asit, Tasya Vagvitya asit, Vag ve param Brahma. In the beginning was Brahman, the Absolute, with whom was the voice or the word, and the word is that Absolute. So the exact same message from a completely different culture thousands of years before. This is also, has to do with just the vibratory quality of everything. Everything is a voice. The sound of the trees is a voice. When the wind blows through them, every sound is the voice of this one being. And there's infinite mystery in this. So we've all probably heard the term the music of the spheres. So this was described by Pythagoras, the father of mathematics in Greece, who described being able to tune to the music of the spheres, which enabled him to discover that there are fundamental musical intervals that are consonant and can be expressed as mathematical expressions that underlie the universe. And then Plato went on to use Pythagoras' description of this to develop a model of the structure of the universe. I mean, we're talking about, these are the great wisdom traditions of the Western tradition, Plato, Pythagoras. So this is universal wisdom. And probably all of you know that Beethoven and Mozart, for example, I don't know about other composers, but they said they didn't compose their music was not composed. They heard it. They heard it and then they expressed it by writing it down, but it wasn't that they composed it. It came through them. So, sound, voice is this great, amazing power that we all have, a great power. And in the Tantric tradition, it's described in terms of matrika. Matrika is the same, our word matrix is the same word, but it's specifically the matrix of the syllables. So we have, a large group of syllables or ways that we can put together words. We put together words out of syllables. Then those syllables in a word take on meaning, and then meaning lands in the heart of the hearer and the heart of the speaker, and that meaning then transforms experience in that moment, right? If I say, for example, lemon, then suddenly each of you has the image of a lemon and kind of maybe even the taste and the smell of a lemon. And that's just lemon. How about all the amazing other words and meanings, and how meaning shapes our experience? And has, meaning has such deep meaning, right? I mean, so our voice, the words we choose, the tone of it all is it's a very powerful tool that we have, and something to learn to use skillfully.
So it's considered that what is spoken is true if it is kind. So if we go back into alignment with divine consciousness, that the sculpting of the word, right? So every word that is chosen and expressed, right, it is going to have the deepest alignment if it is kind, if it's not rejecting, if it's not making the other wrong, if it's looking for the connection, looking for the smooth opening to how to keep the energies moving, how to keep the energies moving. So it's not unlike the Buddha described right speech, so right speech in the Eightfold Path is also clear, aligned, kind. Okay. So when we're becoming curious about refining and deepening our ability to hear, right? So it is this ability to actually hear the words, the structure of the sentences that are arising and being expressed through us each time we speak, each time we open to express. And that even the words, right? So the structure, the matrika of the sound and the syllable structure that then imports the meaning, of course, is carried, and we all know this, like this is not rocket science, but it is carried by the tenor of the voice, right? The feeling of the voice through which the matrika, the shaping of the words takes place, has a profound impact on how it is received, and whether it creates then that possibility of that ongoing fluidity, right? The flow, different from contraction. So one of the first, I know some of you know this story, but one of the first jobs that I had out of undergrad was I worked at behavioral medicine. I was a research coordinator at integrative medicine at Duke. And the team that I got to work with was an amazing team. But basically what we did was we devised instrumentation, auditory, like literally we were listening for ways in which the tone of voice structures. And we could, just by listening to the tone of voice, not even the words, but the tone, we could predict who was going to go on to develop heart disease. So the tone itself is, because there's so much energy, right, in the tone. So to be able to hear the tone moment to moment, because it has detrimental impacts on the physiology through which it is moving, but it also has impact on the quote unquote other, right? It's hostility. So if you hear, like if somebody comes at you like, well, of course we would, and you hear that hostile tone, right? And in our system, when we hear that, if we contract, guard, block, right? Then all of a sudden we have created dissonance in the current. So to be able to stay present, open, reset, like hear the tone, let it move through, right? Let it metabolize, let it be digested without the guarding, contracting, like this piece. So the capacity to hear is immense. The capacity to hear is truly immense. So when we played with in meditation, explored, what is it like to be in that soft, exquisitely sensitive receptivity to actually just feel the current of vibration of breath, the current and vibration, and then begin to feel like, well, then what does this tone that comes through this voice, what does it actually feel like, right? So we're deepening that awareness and refining the instrument, right? Refining the instrument. So again, we'll go back to Francesco, and one of the phrases he's most well known for is, "Grant that I be an instrument of thy peace." So that gesture too is intimately woven with that ability to tune, to hear, to express, both in word structure and word tone, what is going to impart that. Can you see how, crazy practice that you will never be bored. You will never be bored. And sometimes even, and I love to do this, like I was doing this when people were sharing, this can be really just an incredibly rich process of when you're listening to somebody. Hear the words, but rather than focusing primarily on the words, also hear the tone that's being expressed. Because there's this whole universe of energetic expression that's moving through tone. So beginning to really sense consciously, because we have this unconscious, this is not new, but just to again, deepen our awareness, become more awake to those tones. So we hear what we're saying and we feel how that's going to land, right? Because we feel it move through us. We feel the vibration as it moves.
And this is something that we can also, a meditative process, so to be able to trace it. And we partly did that with the meditation this morning. And I'm going to describe it, but I'm going to let Kimberly describe how she directly discovered this in a meditation retreat. In the yoga tradition, Vani is Shakti as voice, that she is our voice, and she has 4 levels. So the deepest level is described as down in the belly region. There's an infinite potential for sound to arise, an infinite creativity that's yet unexpressed. And that can be felt in the belly region and in extending for even further down. But in that region, then it's just infinite potential not yet expressed. Then the first level is called Pashanti, which means seen or experience. And each word first just shows up as a little kind of an impulse. There's an impulse, but it's not yet known exactly what it is, but the impulse is felt. Then it rises into the throat area, and then it appears as thought. So we know what the word is. It expresses itself as a thought, and then finally it reaches the mouth and it comes out as a spoken word. That is happening every time. Every single time we speak, the infinite potential has an impulse, the impulse becomes a thought, and then the thought is expressed through the tongue, through the mouth as a word. That's going on all the time. And to really know this, then it's something you have to kind of investigate in meditation. If you follow your thoughts, so this would be not thinking, but noticing thoughts in meditation, not as their meaning, but just as vibratory sounds that are appearing. And then you trace the thought and you will come to just like an impulse. And then that impulse will settle and there'll be infinite expansion. So it's that this is happening all the time.
And this is the spanda. This is actually the creation of the universe is happening in that moment. So so this experience, I think I've probably shared this with you guys, some of you certainly, but it was a 10-day silent retreat, and the subtlety of awareness was, pretty yummy, and was able to watch for a period of about 36 hours, because I wasn't sleeping in this retreat, that there was this tremble that was like, it's actually right below, it's like right in the heart of the solar plexus, like this little like twitch, and then from that, it would blossom up into thought. And it was consistent, and it would happen, like, again, for 36 hours solid. I just watched it. It was that every single time there was this little cheek. So there was this blossoming forward of thought and therefore reality. And what was fascinating, or manifest reality, and what was fascinating too, is that beginning to recognize, so that solar plexus, for those of you that have, are interested in the esoterica, which is this all is, of course, is that, so the solar plexus is considered the seat of will, right? So Itcha Shakti, which is the Shakti of will. It's the desire to create. So the solar plexus is generally considered the seat of will. But when we really pay attention and we listen and we learn to refine this capacity to hear, we begin to recognize that this is the seat of God's will. Right? We take ownership. We take ownership, but that's not what's happening at all. This is also the seat of where every breath initiates. So there is something really, really powerful about becoming curious. So this is where this subtle investigation of this central channel becomes quite revealing, if we're willing to just be patient, tune, listen deeply, okay? And then to refine the instrument, right? Just refine the instrument.
So that's a lot about the power of matrika, of sound, of syllables, of meaning, of every single word and how it is spoken.
You could spend a lifetime studying the matrika.
And in fact, there is, for example, there's an entire yoga that's called Nada Yoga that, for example, if you know the great master musician Ravi Shankar, who passed away a couple of years ago, he was raised in a Nada Yoga tradition. And I think at the age of 6, he was initiated into this tradition where the intention is divine union, but it's through sound, through voice, through music, through sound. And it's a whole set of practices in which all of their practices are centered around the relationship with sound and voice. So there is a whole yoga of that if you wanted to do that. But we're going to have a simple recommendation.
Yeah. So, but because this is so like, welcome to fire hose land. That's all we do. Any questions, comments, observations?
So I've been writing frantically with a bum thumb trying to get everything down here. But I'm wondering if what you were saying, like towards the beginning, about if you're hearing hostility in that, okay, so if there's a tone that's hostile and it's coming out and you hear it as hostile and somehow you can make a decision not to react in hostility, and then that doesn't stop the contraction. It doesn't add to the contraction, and so then it kind of just blows over and is and so there's no contraction in the energies. So then I'm not really explaining this very well, but and so it just goes out into the universe as more of an expansion, or it blows over, or it liberates. I'm trying to figure out what that process is. And in my mind, I'm thinking about, talking to my brother and his right wing, and, trying to see this as a tool in my own communication with people that, so anyway, can you explain that a little bit more?
Of course. So there's a couple of lenses that we could add to this, but on a really pragmatic level, it's just that ability to just feel feel the tone, feel the energy of the hostility, and not contract. And not, so here's a tendency, right? We feel that current coming at us, right? And then we armor, and then we take that armoring, and then we often just throw it back, right? And so there is then this agitation. It fuels the agitation in the field. It fuels the agitation. There's this, and I've mentioned this to you guys before, and we can spend time on this at another session. But so there's this Native American understanding that Wetiko, which is the word that is used for evil. Evil is just when undigested shadow finds resonance. And it can be within an individual. It can be between individuals. It can be between institutions. It can be between nations. It can be between, planets. I mean, it's infinite, but wherever shadow finds resonance.
Say something more about shadow for those who may not be familiar with.
So shadow would just be those parts that are of us that are not illuminated. Unexamined
parts of ourselves.
And they usually tend to show up as deep patterns of contraction and self-protection, which can cause harm. And so if hostility is being tossed forward and it pulls hostility from you, then those energies get bigger. That vibration gets stronger and finds coherence. Because that's all vibrations do is when they find coherence, right, then it amplifies. Okay. So it really is just sensing, feeling, watching, right, at what arises here in response to this and in response to this. Can you see that? So we're just not, we're refining the instrument so we don't add to that contraction. We don't give resonance to shadow. We don't feed the unaware. Does that help working with your brother? Yeah. Okay.
And the most, what we have the most, working with the way that your system responds is that takes a lot of learning. But what's more immediately available is choosing the words that you're going to respond with and the tone with which you will respond with. That you have a lot more accessible way to be skillful right now, right? So the invitation this week it's consistent with the next to the last line of the Atmatwam, Stotrani Sarvagiro. May every expression that comes out of my mouth be praise of you. Praise of you meaning God, meaning infinite consciousness, meaning your own dear self that is present in the form of the other people, the other animals. It's all one. So may all my words be praise of you, love of you. May they all express love. Both
internal and external.
Both in the words chosen and the tone in which it's conveyed. That would be kind of our homework, is see if for a week we can practice that kind of speech that is attuned to loving all of us as expressions of that one reality.
Seem doable? Interesting material to sit with? You won't be bored.